Welcome to the Lend Academy podcast, session number 3. Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us here on the podcast again. Today we have a treat in store for everybody, talking with Bryce Mason, who is the founder of P2P Picks, probably the leading credit modeler in the P2P lending world right now, particularly when it comes to retail investors. And he talks about his service, talks about what's coming down the pipe and the challenges for investors today. I thoroughly enjoyed this interview. Hope you do as well. Okay, welcome to the podcast, Bryce.
Thank you, Peter. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so why don't you just start off with giving a little bit of background about yourself, like what you do for a day job, and just tell people more about yourself.
Sure. I like to say that I'm an extroverted statistician.
I saw that's on your LinkedIn profile. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a lot of comments about that. By day, I'm a college administrator who runs a department devoted to data analysis. We tell stories with data, basically, to help people, decision makers, make policy choices that are based on evidence and reality rather than anecdote or personal belief. I've been doing, all sorts of analyses and using many techniques over about a 10-year period in various facets of higher education, ranging from cost control to evaluating interventions such as to improve bar passage rates or graduation rates. My formal training is in mathematics at UC Riverside and policy analysis at the Rand Graduate School. And they've been hugely useful professionally, but I've also been into computer programming as an avocation since I was about 10. Huh. And that's been quite helpful in this respect as well as throughout my professional career.
Sure.
Of course.
So do you teach as well? Do you teach at the university, or are you mainly an administrator?
Yeah. Mainly I'm a college administrator, but I do teach one class every year in, no surprise, in the finance department, statistics for the MBA program. So I enjoy that a great deal, and the students enjoy hearing a little bit about how I apply statistics to a scenario that they're naturally interested in.
Okay. So how do you remember how you first came across P2P lending and what got you interested in it?
I remember reading about Prosper in 2006 on some internet finance forums that I frequented at that time. There was an openness from the company that I found appealing. There were promises to share record level loan data, for example, and I found that astonishing. No other institutions that I know of, save for the federal government in things like the census or other national surveys that are used for the public good, really have ever provided such a revealing look into their core business. At the time, I decided to hold off investing personally until I could study that data and develop a strategy. And, years passed and the financial crisis kind of distracted me. And waiting was probably a good personal choice.
Yeah, it was.
But eventually in late 2011, I ran across Lending Club and had some spare money at that time. And I've been working a number of years and took time over the Christmas break to really to work that data very carefully. And for the first time, I felt like, wow, I've got a leg up in the investing world. This is the kind of data that one needs to do serious due diligence, and is only really ever rarely provided. And yet there it was. And so I really, I began kind of my most confident investment choices at that time.
Okay. So can you talk the listeners through a little bit? I mean, you're obviously a pretty sophisticated data analyst. What is the difference between what you did then and what you've continued to do than what people like I do, who just basically go onto Nickel Steamroller and look at the analysis and see, okay, historically, zero inquiries has been a really good filter. Income is a really good filter. See how they combine, and come up with a filtering strategy, which is what I would say 99% of active investors do. So what's the difference between what you did and what we do?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and there are a number of differences, but I think that probably the two that are most important come down to the following things. The primary difference is that when we analyze the data to understand what drives profitability or loss rates. We're doing it simultaneously with all of the factors that are provided to us, so that we can understand in a simultaneous way how income relates to charge off while holding constant, inquiries and looking at the type of the loan that it is and perhaps the borrower location. All of these things interplay with each other, and they all have kind of their own independent relationships to the things that you're studying. And when you use a filter strategy, which is perfectly fine. I mean, filter strategies are wonderful, and people are getting great results with them. The issue is that when you decide unilaterally that you want to say inquiries equal to 0, it may very well be the case, and indeed it is the case, that perhaps there's a lot of good inquiry equal to 1 loans out there that happen to be very, very positive on many other dimensions that overcome the fact that that loan has a single inquiry.
Right. Yeah.
And so it comes down to volume. A filter strategy is perfectly adequate for a single investor wanting to get good returns on their portfolio, but you try to have a strong. The difference becomes you really need some sort of more sophisticated modeling approach when you're trying to deploy millions and millions of dollars, such as a pension fund or an investment fund might do, and you need to be able to target quality loans in a large volume way.
Right, that makes sense. So it's sort of like it's a more holistic approach, I guess you would say, than just
it's looking at all of the factors simultaneously and not saying that any one of them is an absolute. It's saying let's look at all 50, 100 things that the platforms provide you to analyze and say what is individual contribution and how do all of those things sum up given all of the borrower characteristics.
Right. Okay. So do you, you've got all the Lending Club data, everything that's publicly available. Do you also use any external data like foreclosure rates or unemployment rate by different states and that sort of thing? Or do you just purely focus on the actual data that we're given?
Yes. I have analyzed extensively other data sources. Now, to be frank, most of the, to be the most frank, the models that one can construct trying to predict borrower behavior in terms of charging off or not charging off are not, unbelievably powerful. I mean, there's a lot of randomness out there in the data, right. and I don't want to, I think that that's important to get on the table for the listeners is that, no one out there can predict with certainty what's going to happen with loans. It's quite variable. But to the extent that you can predict some things and some tendencies, the best data is always the individual borrower data. So the data that Lending Club and Prosper and these platforms are providing about the borrowers themselves is certainly the most powerful and most important. But that said, there are kind of more macroeconomic factors that can be studied and attached to those borrowers that do say some light additional relationships to profitability. So and there are a number of sources out there. The Federal Reserve Economic Database called FRED provides a number of state level and county level characteristics that you can study, such as unemployment rates and foreclosure rates and those kinds of things. And anyway, there's a number of external sources.
So without giving away your secret sauce, I mean, are you using those sources in your models today?
I can tell you that I have looked at all. I mean, there are thousands of different variables and factors in those databases from like the current population surveys and FRED, and I've spent hundreds of hours scouring those factors to try to understand if there's much of a relationship and which ones. All I can really tell you is that I've looked at it very carefully. Okay,
fair enough. So, I know when we first chatted, I think it's probably been almost 2 years ago now, probably soon after you got going in your doing your Lending Club work. I know you started off, you basically created this model that you've been using to invest your own personal money. At what point did you decide that this is something that you really is worth sharing with other investors, and which ended up, obviously with P2P picks? When did you decide that, and how did that kind of come to be? What were the thought processes?
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. I mean, it began as my personal investment strategy, but I quickly realized that people valued the benefits that a third-party service could provide. So loan selection advice can more quickly help people achieve their investing goals. Many people just simply want to be passive and don't want to, have to develop their own strategies. But I think perhaps more importantly is B, the due diligence behind our advice confers a protective benefit to consumers by maintaining some standardized level of expected performance. I believe it's comforting for people to know that if the platforms such as Lending Club or Prosper suddenly start to dig deeper and deeper into the loan origination barrel, we're identifying that and we're helping them steer clear, and we're kind of holding a standard level of expected performance.
Right. Now that's a good point. So you have right now on P2P picks, you have the loss minimizer and the profit maximizer. Can you just tell us the different approach between those two models?
Yeah, no problem at all. Those two models are really two sides of the same coin. In this case, the coin is a statistical model, a single statistical model that, given the relevant borrower information that Lending Club provides and perhaps some external sources, can yield an estimated probability of that loan charging off or experiencing a default. Then once you have that, it can be used to achieve many goals. And the models that you mentioned are two examples, but we've designed other products that are proprietary for different clients. And they're all driven off that same likelihood of a borrower defaulting. Profit Maximizer, although it's evolved a little bit over the last couple of years, its core idea has always been to identify those loans that have the highest expected profit. Mm-hmm. And the loss minimizer is simply just very, very much for the conservative lender, trying to identify those loans that just have the absolute lowest likelihood of defaulting, regardless of their interest rate. So, that tends towards the A-graded loans, but you would be surprised how many B notes also wind up having a pretty low chance of default.
Okay. So then, how about the evolution? Like, we know that I think it was December last year where Lending Club did a pretty major underwriting change. I think they did another significant one earlier this year. I mean, what do you do when you're seeing these changes? Because I know that your models are built purely on matured loans. So you wait for the full 3 years, correct, on how to build your model.
We do.
Yeah.
We do wait for. We study matured loans only. Although we'll probably start having an advanced look at some of the 60-month loans real shortly, so that we can, when we do start to have that mature data, we can get right on it. But for the actual products that we sell, everything is based on mature loans.
Okay, that's a good point. So you obviously everything is 36-month loans right now. So then, does that just not concern you then? The changes that happen, the underwriting tweaks that they're doing. What's your view on how things just drift, how things have changed over the years?
Yeah, things always evolve, but they have their underwriting, and we have ours. They are 100% to the extent that they provide us accurate data. They are 100% exclusive from each other. We do not rely on any judgments made by Lending Club or Prosper in our assessment of a likelihood to default. We use all characteristics that are unique to the borrower. So, for example, we wouldn't use loan grade. We wouldn't use the A, B, C, D, E in our judgments. And so, therefore, when Lending Club or Prosper makes a change, it simply doesn't affect us. We roll with our models and our belief based on the history of how we see all these factors interplaying with the likelihood of default, and that's that. Now, occasionally when they make an interest rate change, if they suddenly made D loans tomorrow 5% higher, then we would immediately spot that. I mean, the algorithms would take that into consideration and probably start picking a lot more D loans for the profit maximizer model.
Right. Okay. So then you just mentioned that, the 60-month loans you're going to start taking a look at, even though I think it's going to be 2015, I believe, before the first ones matured.
Tail end of 2015, I think we'll have enough to be able to use it. But I think we're a good 3 years into those, and the default curves are looking mostly like the 36-month curves, and so you can interpolate to a good degree how that's going to end up. But of course, we don't want to have any surprises in a final product. So yeah, we'll probably start studying those real soon.
So what about adjusting that to the 36-month loans? Do you have any plans to say look at the 36-month loans after 18 months or 2 years? Because obviously you're only looking at because you're waiting 3 years, you're only looking at a small subset of all the loans because they've been growing so fast. So
yeah, that's true.
Are you planning on making changes there, like looking at earlier before they fully matured?
No, not really. There are different statistical methods that can take advantage of data that have not matured or completely finalized. There's hazard models that look at censored data like that. But to be frank, there are other benefits for having just simply looking at matured loans. It's very simple. Yep. I'm a big fan of simplicity. And then there are some calculation-based advantages for keeping it really simple that maybe we can go into later. But no, I think that we're okay. The fact is that every quarter we go through and we rebuild the model based on the additional 3 months of completed loans over the history. And so as we do that every quarter, we keep a record of how that model changes or what the patterns look like over time. And it's amazing the great consistency that these relationships have quarter after quarter after quarter. And so I'm not really convinced that going too far into the future would really yield anything that dramatically different.
Interesting. So when you do these updated models, you find that you don't really have to change much of anything.
Don't have to change much of anything. I mean, all of the word that we use are coefficients. All the coefficients, they change on the margin a little bit. But in some cases, like for example, the relationship between the borrower's FICO score and likelihood of default. I mean, sometimes these things just change, less than 1/100th of a point. And
wow,
so,
wow.
When the differences are that modest, it gives you good confidence that adding additional data, while it may help you spot a smaller relationship, isn't going to change that relationship dramatically.
Interesting. Well, interesting to see how if that continues, because there's been a few points in Lending Club's history where they have made relatively dramatic changes to their underwriting, and their interest rates have definitely adjusted. I mean, you've seen. I think when I first started, interest rates were way lower than they are today, particularly at the higher end. It seems like that's been something that's changed. I mean, so it'll be interesting to see how it evolves, I guess, over time.
Yeah, that may be true. Now, you got to remember that the interest rate is actually the end product of Lending Club's assessment of the borrower. They take all of the borrower inputs and then assign an interest rate. Really, the interest rate has nothing to do with, if you just look at it exclusively by itself against the default, of course it has a strong relationship because it's the signal that wraps up all of those borrower characteristics into what they think is an appropriate assessment of the risk. But so them changing interest rates here, there, or anywhere, depending on myriad factors, really doesn't influence the underlying statistical model.
Okay. So then, what do you think the advantage is? Like, what sort of? I know you did a post on Lend Academy about this, but I just share with readers here what kind of advantage does the profit maximizer give you as far as an expected return above an average return?
Sure. I mean, I can only speak to the back testing that we've done. That paper is out there on the web, and also my personal account. But in terms of an improvement over like an indexed approach, it's 300 or 400 basis points above an average.
Okay.
I think that the real benefit, and to be honest, it's not hard to beat that. You can use very, very tight filters. I think you have a fairly tight filter, and I know that
Right.
others around the web have an even tighter filter, and they can improve above and beyond that. But the goal that we're trying to achieve is to be able to support thousands of subscribers who want to be able to have above average returns, be in that top 10%, and make it easy on them. So we have slightly different goals than trying to be the absolute, pinnacle
Right.
of return. We're trying to build something that can support a lot of users or a few very large institutions.
Right, I see. Yeah, so let's start talking about that, like the P2P picks. You launched earlier this year. It's probably been, probably 9 months ago, I guess it's been thereabouts. How's it been going? Do you have a large number of subscribers? I mean, what can you tell us about how p2ppicks.com has been going?
Sure. Well, we've been growing consistently. Every week we pick up a few additional subscribers. Over 350 people have tried the service so far. I think we've been open about 8 or 9 months. Although the number of active users fluctuates, probably about half of that. In terms of web traffic, it's amazing. I mean, about 50 people a day are hitting our website, either deploying new capital or reinvesting their loan payments. Order volume is very tricky to measure. We don't have direct access to their accounts.
Right.
Historically, the website would simply count their attempted investments when they clicked on the go button. But there are a number of reasons why subscribers may not have invested their money. As you're well aware, and probably most listeners are, the most likely of which is that the loan was just simply no longer available. You have to be on it. You have to be sitting there on
Right.
the website, ready to go.
Hit refresh every second.
In the old days when one could take their time, that method was a lot more accurate. But I'm certain that we've helped inform millions of dollars of investments on behalf of our retail clients.
Okay, so what is the breakdown? Do you know between the loss minimizer and the profit maximizer? I mean, I imagine most people going to your site are doing the profit maximizer.
They do, yeah.
True?
I'd say that's probably 80 to 85% of the activity on the site.
Okay, and because I mean, I am one of those people. I actually get on for my main taxable account. I'm using P2P Picks. I'm on pretty much every day, and I am on there. I wait. I wait till the loans hit Lending Club, and then as soon as I see them hitting Lending Club, I go straight over to. I have them in 2 windows, and straight over to P2P Picks, and
they're ready, aren't they, Peter?
They're pretty much ready. You've done a lot better. Back in the old days, when like 3 or 4 months ago, it would take me 10 seconds, 15 seconds to get them coming in, but now it's pretty much right there. It's which is obviously you've done some speed enhancements, I imagine, to your service. Can you let us know what? I mean, we know when you started, people had lots of time. You could invest, and the popular loans would maybe be gone in a half a day, maybe the really popular loans in a couple of hours, but never in seconds. So
No.
how have you evolved your service to really change with the competitive environment today?
Yeah, it's a far cry from the days when I would email spreadsheets.
Right now, that's right. Back at this, so listeners know, back last year in 2012, Bryce would email me a spreadsheet about once a week, I think it was, and I would. With a link to the note, and I would go in and invest manually, and he had plenty. And I'd sometimes sit on that for a day, and then go in and invest. And most of them would still be there. Most of them would still be there. But,
Yeah.
not the case anymore.
It does become more and more competitive over time. I'm very proud of how we've been ahead of the curve on this end, or at least been quick to react when there are dramatic changes. First, we're very fast on the trigger now when it comes to making our publications. We've purposely alluded to this a few questions ago. We've purposely chosen statistical methods for which the math to score loans isn't all that complicated. From the time that we detect that new loans are available on the platform, we've usually published our picks within about 2 to 4 seconds. Most of that time is the loan data in transit. The actual analysis only takes like 20 milliseconds. People who are waiting on the website can usually pick up some loans. Although I think, in the long run, ninja-like human interface is probably a waning art.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's
now,
I find now I get, I'm sort of probably a 25% success rate these days, and I'm fast.
Yeah.
But,
now
that's the way it goes.
Second, so we recognize that sort of human interface is probably going to go away at some point. So we've developed a custom application programming interface, or API, for users or subscribers to our site to enable them, people to fetch our publications and use them as they wish. For those without the programming skills to do that, on their own, we're partnering with third-party account management service providers so that they can still take advantage of our research, but in an automated way. We're staying away from the execution side of things, but we are providing our publications to people in faster and faster ways and in automated ways, so that they can they don't have to be sitting there and testing their reflex skills.
Right. So is that the partnership with Blue Vestment? Is that what you're talking about right now?
Yes, we have a partnership with Blue Vestment, but we're very open with the use of our API. The whole point of it is to get it out there and that people can use it. So we're hoping for additional third-party account managers to take that up and put it on their systems. And we're also hoping, hey, there's some creative individuals out there that maybe want to make like an open source utility that people could run, and they could just incorporate that API, and then home users could just let it run on their system and let it go.
So are you going to charge the average retail investor, if someone happens to be a really technical person? Are you going to charge them for your API?
There's no charge for the API above and beyond the standard charge for our service, which of course right now is $0. We haven't been charging our retail investors anything.
And I get a bill every month from P2P Picks. But I know it's not, as you say, it's just a bogus bill. It's not actually a bogus bill charging.
It's at some point we'll turn that on, but right now we're just more focused on growing the service and providing a quality service. And to be frank, a few $100 a month isn't going to make or break me. So so it's just more about getting something out there. No, there's no charge for the API. People can just use it if they're a subscriber. They have to apply for an account, but I can turn that on quite simply. And then they can just use it. They just basically they essentially report back via the API what they actually used. So it's sort of on an honor system, but that's about as good as you can do. And then people just would say, hey, I used 5 loans on this product for this amount. Here are the loan IDs, and then it sends that to our system, and then it incorporates it into the database for the billing, and then that's that. Okay.
Are you trying to incorporate some sort of confirmation from Lending Club through the API, so
nope.
It doesn't have to be self-reported? You're just going to rely on the
it's just self-reported. I like to think 99% of people out there are honest, and that's fine. I'm satisfied with that. I'm not going to make my world revolve around detecting fraud.
Sure.
Fair enough. Peter, I got a comment for you about the speed at which these things go. I mean, it may seem awkward for some listeners to hear this, but the fractional marketplace really isn't all that competitive. That may be an astonishing thing to say, but we should count our blessings. By comparison, the whole loan market is an order of magnitude more difficult.
Right.
You're talking about a situation there on the whole loan side where there is no fraction. You either get the loan or you don't.
Right.
There's no peace. It's an unbelievable game of cat and mouse, with Lending Club frequently changing the rules and other sophisticated players constantly improving their execution strategies. It's a good month if I don't have to pull an all-nighter or two implementing ideas to shave off just a handful more milliseconds from the end-to-end process.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that. I know that you've got you landed a big client a few months ago. What can you just tell? What is your strategy with institutional investors? I know you don't want to name the client, but can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what's available for large clients on the whole loan market?
Sure. Institutional clients all generally have different goals. I've spoken with a number of institutional clients over the last year. I think that's half the fun of this endeavor, is that I've gotten to speak with some amazing people and learn what different institutions' goals are and how they operate and what they're looking for. But generally, we provide them the same thing that we provide the retail client, except it's a little more tailored. In the case of the client that we have right now, we sat down. I gave all the same standard information that we've just talked about here, a little bit about the history and who I am and all those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, we designed a custom portfolio based on their goals, their needs. Did a lot of back testing to show them how things should perform based on history. Had to work up an agreement and everything. But then ultimately, we've been acting as portfolio manager, and that's very exciting. I've been deploying, millions of dollars on the whole loan side,
cool.
Having to be very quick and adapt as new players come onto the market and try to stay ahead of the curve. And it's really been, I tell you, hitting the execution button on a hundreds of thousands of dollars of loans every week is at first made me sweat, but
right,
you're convinced. You studied the market very carefully, and you put a lot of trust in your models. And anyway, the execution services have been a little challenging, but it's been a tremendous experience, and we're very pleased to have a good relationship with our client. And we're really looking to grow that side of our business because it's a fascinating industry.
Right. So let's just talk a little about that. Obviously you've got a day job at a university. What are your plans for P2P Picks? What's going to happen? What do you want to happen in 2014?
Yeah. 2014, I'm sure that we'll have a lot more of the same, but I do hope that we're going to revamp our website here probably in the next month or two. And we're going to be advertising a little bit more about our institutional client services that we provide. We're going to add a Prosper model in the next couple of months. The model is actually done since November, but we've got to integrate it into the system. And so we'll be able to service probably 10, 15%, 20% more users who are interested in working on the Prosper side of things. But the long-term vision is that, we'd like to become the Moody's of P2P. There really needs to be there's a role for a third-party, independent credit modeling service for all platforms worldwide. If the mortgage-backed security crisis taught us anything, it's that there's a misalignment of incentives when a securities issuer is different from the investor. And that's not to say that's wrong or bad. It just is. Issuers are motivated by origination, and investors are motivated by performance. And the P2P platforms will continue to write paper until average returns drop to some basal level of performance that's deemed acceptable by the lowest common denominator in the market, which, perhaps a large pension fund that's content to invest billions of dollars at a modest premium over treasuries. So, in the long run, there's a lot of room for lemon loans in this market. More and more loans may be subject to kind of that standard adverse selection problem. And I envision our service kind of being a guardian against that and keeping standards over time that are constant and can help the retail investor stay above board.
Right. That's a good point. So let's just get back to something you said about Prosper. What is that going to be available then on p2ppicks.com for retail investors? Are you making it? Is this going to be a separate piece? Is it going to be available for everybody?
Yeah, it'll be available for everybody. It'll be just on that same webpage, landing page, that when you go to the publications or the pick section, instead of 2 lines there, 2 rows for the publications for Lending Club, there will be 2 additional rows for Prosper. There will be a profit maximizer and a loss minimizer for Prosper as well. And all of those, all of these publications will be available via API for the sophisticated clients.
Great. And at least Prosper and Lending Club have different loan times when they actually add loans onto their platforms.
So, yeah, that's good. I don't need to add another computer to my cluster.
Yeah, exactly. There won't need to be like a double rush. I hope they continue to do that. So okay, Bryce, this has been great. I think I've learned a lot today. I hope all the listeners have as well. I think you've got a great service. I've was I think one of the very first users, and I continue to invest today. And I'm excited about getting Prosper on board, and and about what changes are coming down the pipe. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me, and I can't wait to see what 2014 brings us.
Yep, me too. Okay, thanks, Bryce.
Have a great holiday, Peter. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye. Okay, I hope you found that as fascinating as I did. As I said, I use Bryce's service on a day-to-day basis, and I think he's done just some incredible work here over the last 12 months. And speaking of his site, just if you're interested in finding out more about P2P Picks, it is at P2, the number 2P Picks, PICKS.com. And there'll be a link in the show notes at lendacademy.com/session3. You can see the notes I've made about this podcast, and there'll be a link to Bryce's site there. So with that, I would like to sign off. Wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Have a great time this holiday season. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks. Bye.